Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to be able to speak with everybody today. I love our STS chats. My name is Irina Holden, and I'm Information Literacy and Science Outreach Librarian. I work in a science library at the University at Albany State University of New York. As I'm talking, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat window, and if you have problems hearing me, please let me know. Anytime, if there are any questions, again, I will keep an eye. I would like it to be a conversation. And I tend to speak long, so I will try not to speak too long so we have time to actually have a discussion. Well, information literacy in mathematics and statistics is a course that I started teaching recently, and this thing is so new to me that I'm sure there are some bumps and obstacles, and I can use some good advice from colleagues. How we came to this? How do I advance slides? Do I advance them myself?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Right. Thank you. So, how it all happened? Several years ago, obviously did not happen yesterday. Probably 2011, 2012, entire SUNY system. SUNY system is a large system. I think we are second after California in the country, second largest. We have 64 institutions, including community colleges. So there are 4 university centers. Albany is one of them. Then there are several other universities that grant graduate degrees, and then there are colleges, and then there are community colleges. So variety, huge variety. And the entire SUNY system SUNY Central decided that we're going to move entire general education model into a new way. Instead, before it was, okay, there are 36 credits you have to take for general education, and they will be what? 6 credits of math, maybe 9 credits in history, something in writing. And that was taught through departments, and these courses were sort of required, and everybody was trying to take them, get rid of them, not like them very much especially. So the big idea with the new model was that the general education competencies previously satisfied by these self-standing courses will now be taught within the majors, which means that curriculum in each major had to be rewritten and redone with, gosh, I got off, did I? Hello, can you hear me?
We can still hear you, Irina.
Okay, because for some reason the screen just disappeared in front of me, I'm sorry. Okay, so all these major competencies, their general education requirements, now supposed to be taught through the departments, through the majors, which meant a huge adjustment and huge commitment to every department who had majors, because they needed to rewrite their curriculum and incorporate all these competencies into their curriculum, starting with the freshman year till the senior year, when so then they can graduate their students and say, yes, we can check any of these, and our students are satisfied all these requirements. So the cutoff date was that it was supposed to begin in fall 2014. So whoever enters university in fall 2014 now already is taking classes with this new model. So the conversations were happening before 2014, obviously. We were still teaching our old courses, information literacy. I personally taught information literacy in the sciences. And what we did, we had a lot of meetings with various department heads. They would come and we will demonstrate for them what information literacy was. We talked about the standards. I think I should go to the next slide. But I cannot proceed. Oh, yeah. Right. So we did meetings and workshops, and we talked to the departments, mostly department chairs, about what information literacy was, how it's being taught. We introduced ACRL standards. At the same time, we were discovering SCONUL, the British Library body, 7 pillars of information literacy, and we actually, our department, we all chipped in and wrote an open access textbook based on 7 pillars of information literacy, and I wrote a chapter on science literacy and contributed to a couple other chapters. It's through our SUNY open textbooks. It's available to anybody. The conversations were interesting. The teaching faculty listened to us and took notes. Unfortunately, we do not really know how most of it, what most of it came out, what came out of it, because about 13 or 14 departments still did not come up with any plan, and there is actually no mechanism to hold them accountable, and we don't know how it's going to turn out. But Department of Mathematics decided not to think long, and they asked for our help. Gosh, I cannot move. Just a moment, I'm trying to move to next slide. Hello, can you hear me?
We can still hear you.
I cannot advance slide for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay, I think the slides are advancing for you, but I'm trying to get a hold of you, Lois, because we need to get the. There we go. Okay. Now people should be following you.
All right. Thank you so much. So, difficult process, moving into new general education requirements, teaching all these competencies through majors. However, Department of Mathematics didn't think long time. They actually talked to us librarians a couple of times. They came to our meetings, and so they came up with idea, and they asked for our help. The idea was that to satisfy the other competencies such as writing requirement, oral discourse, and critical thinking competency, they will create a new course on mathematical proofs. In this course, students will do some writing, and then they will do some presentation, so that will be part of oral discourse. And then they told me, critical thinking we have a lot of, so that was good too. And they also asked us, librarians, can you please come up with a course, information literacy? We do not see how we can incorporate information literacy through our curriculum. Can you please just have a course for us and teach it for our students? So that's how the idea was born, and we decided, yes, we can do it, since some other departments also were asking us, but mathematics was not so big, so we could satisfy them. I think the larger departments were turned away because we just did not have the capacity to teach everybody in those courses. So what we did was we came up with the course, 8-week, 1-credit course. Our courses are all 8-week, 1 credit, so it was not much of a difference in terms of having set up the logistics. And that's what we basically did. For learning objectives, I would like to go through our learning objectives. That's what came up. The learning objectives were delivered to every department through University Academic Council approved them. And so for information literacy, the objectives were right, you could see them in front of you. Understand information environment and information needs in a discipline in today's society, including organization and open access to information. Demonstrate the ability to evaluate content, including dynamic online content if appropriate. We already tried to base them on the fast developing web environment and all the changes that our instructors were incorporating in their instructions, including interactive online elements, social media environment, etc. So another one, conduct ethical practices in the use of information in ways that demonstrate awareness of issues in intellectual property and personal privacy. Produce, share, evaluate information in a variety of participatory environments. That addresses the idea of students being not just information users that we used to think of them, but also information creators, as we all are these days. So it is very important to address it. We felt like it's very important to address in our learning objectives. And so integrate learning and research strategies with lifelong learning processes and personal, academic, and professional goals. So these were learning outcomes that, learning objectives that were accepted by University Council towards information literacy. So what we tried to help departments as much as we could. For example, when we were creating this document, we also did some brainstorming about how to help, how to provide some actual sort of advice to the departments if they do not really want to talk to us directly. So we sort of had a document in which we included examples of various activities appropriate for a particular discipline. Here you see a lot of science here because us science librarians came together in science library and we sat and thought, what can we recommend to our departments? And that sort of some ideas we've thought, like this exercise could address learning objective 1, or maybe the other one can address learning objective 2. So that was the process. And now thinking back, it was a lot of work and we really tried to do our best. And then it sort of we had this splash, and then it sort of everything sort of quieted down, and we did not hear from many departments except for mathematics. They really wanted us to come up with this class. And so we wrote a proposal, and I came up with a sample syllabus, and it passed the University Academic Council. So let's take a look at how I sort of worked on planning my classes. I sort of used my basic model from previous course. Obviously, you have to land on something that you already have. Basically, when I started teaching information literacy about 10 years ago, our main goal was that students learn how to create an annotated bibliography. And as we were adding different activities, including web activities, annotated bibliography sort of became less of a significant part of a project. However, it's still a big one, and I still think that it is very important that students know how to analyze the source and how to write a critical annotation and citation in APA style. That is what's required for them for annotated bibliography part. And then there came up, other exercises came along, for example, database comparison, where they will compare a couple of databases, one of them that must be their favorite, and the one that was less useful, and sometimes they could just say, oh, EBSCO Academic Search Complete is so good, and the other ones were not so helpful, and the ones that you really wanted to be helpful actually were not so helpful. So that was an eye-opening exercise. Statistics in the news became one of my sort of big, challenging, I would say, exercises. I also suggested that students can do biographical research if they could research one of the mathematicians, one of the scientists in mathematics. And actually, in one of my teams did a project on Carl Gauss last semester. It was interesting. They dug out a lot of interesting information and then his articles and books, and that was a great process watching them do that. I also knew that I have to talk about open access and scholarly publications in citizen science. I talked about patents. I talked about the patents with my students and information literacy in the sciences class, and I thought it's important that we go over it in this class as well. So there were a lot of these things to touch upon and include in my include in my plan when I was working on the course. I also started using team-based learning method, TBL, in my classes, I would say maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was a reluctant adopter because team-based learning method requires a lot of accountability from students, and they work in teams immediately from day one. They get divided into teams. And that sometimes I think in such a short course as mine, which is 8-week course, not every component, not every element of TBL can work well. For example, peer assessments. Students were required to write peer assessments of each other, and what they do in the course normally, they do it around midterms as a midterm peer assessment, and then the final peer assessment at the end of the course. Just it's really comparing them is fascinating because you could see the improvement growing. But in my course, peer assessment happens during week 4, so that sometimes they might not even get a chance to work closely with each other. Sometimes they don't even know each other's names. They email me, Ms. Holden, can you please tell me what is the name of those girls on my team? So that is, again, somewhat problematic. However, I'm a big proponent now. I think it really helps students to mobilize all their efforts and really hold them accountable. Students are sort of a flipped classroom model. Students do the readings before the class. They come to class, and the first thing they do is they are getting tested. They take so-called readiness assurance tests, RATs, and they take them first individually, then they take them as a team, and the grade is split between the two. So, for example, usually it should be around 50-50, but students usually select 60% for team grade and 40% for individual, as team grades are always better than individual. And the tests are supposed to be built in such a way that it encourages a conversation and discussion. It is not just a straight answer. It has to be the test is supposed to be tricky, and if teams do not agree with the results of the test, then it's immediate response. They get scratch cards. I don't know if some of you saw. I'm sure some of you have seen those. We get them through our Institute for Teaching, Learning, and Academic Leadership, ITLAL. They're really excellent. It's a source for teaching faculty. Helping anything in teaching, any ideas, and they hold these workshops on team-based learning and other great things, and they provide the material. So there's these scratch cards, and you give it to each team, and if they scratch the answer and they see little stars, they are really excited they got the right answer. But if they do not see the star, they sometimes get angry. They are allowed to appeal. Only team tests can be appealed, and they have to argue. They have to provide sufficient argumentation why they think their answer was better than the one that actually I deemed correct. So that's how the TBL method works, and I have to tell you that even from such a short period of time for peer assessment, week 4 and then week 7 or 8, usually we don't get luxury of 8 weeks. Our courses are about 7 weeks due to various breaks or holidays. So even between those 2 short terms, you could see improvement. For example, if midterm peer assessment said Sarah is too shy, she should speak up for herself, then at the end they will say Sarah really improved and she became quite active member of our team. So that's TBL for you. And they work all together on their team project, which is a web-based research guide. I used Wiki platform for the web-based projects. I used PBWorks. And then I offered Weebly. Weebly is basically a self-publishing Medium platform. You could open an account, and anybody can open an account and built their little web project, and it really is a very interesting and helpful environment. My students really enjoy working in it. So that's a lot of work actually for a class based from what students were doing in my classes, working on their individual bibliographies 10 years ago. One of the big exercises, as I mentioned, was statistics in the news. As I was getting ready when I was working on creating this course, I read a lot of literature, so it was, 2012, 2013. And it was difficult to dig out anything in information literacy and mathematics, because mathematics is really not the subject that invites information research component. Of course, mathematicians research, but it's not what it is in other disciplines. So what I've read was that statistics actually lent a better platform sort of for research. You could really come up with some interesting models and some good exercises. And this is like one of my most favorite assignments that I give to students. And sometimes it can be very challenging, depending on the topic students are researching. There might be shortage of popular literature that has a lot of statistics on this particular topic that actually point you out to the direct original report. So the assignment is, and I found it through the article. Well, this one, Math Professor Designs Project to Make Students Statistically Literate. The math professor was professor from North Georgia University, Karen Briggs, and she decided that she should create some project for her students, I believe in statistics class, that will help them to become more statistically literate. So she created this. She created a project, and I've got the idea from that little article. Here's a link to it in my presentation. It's still, I checked it, it's still alive. It came from statly.org website, which is written by professor of mathematics, professor of statistics, I believe, from Auburn University in Minnesota. I sort of try to check these links because it's been a few years ago since I used them. So the students are required to look for popular articles such as Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and find those that have statistics, graphs, charts, tables, and they tell where statistics are coming from. Then they're supposed to trace the original report and compare how the same statistics were covered in original report to the representation in the popular literature. And I found it extremely interesting and useful. For example, one of the topics, one of my first class, pilot program, spring 2015, I had two teams. One was researching statistics in solar use energy, and the other one was researching video gaming in higher education, and the video gaming team could not find articles. I mean, one student did, but it was extremely difficult, so I had to modify assignments for them. Data literacy is another important thing that I just introduced to my students. My first time students heard about it in fall 2015, and there are articles on data literacy out there in the library literature, stating how important it is in our times to have students be data literate. I happen to be fortunate to have a colleague, Elaine Laster-Bergman. She's our subject librarian for social work. She's also my co-author. Several years ago, we wrote Systematic Review together. I do appreciate intellectual curiosity, and Elaine just completed Certificate of Advanced Study in Data Science from iSchool. This is a library school at Syracuse University in New York. So having such important source for me as related to data literacy was great, and I invited Elaine to come and talk to my students about it, maybe 35-40-minute presentation. And Elaine did a great job. What she discussed were, and here are the major points: data versus statistics, data collection, variable types. It was very interesting. She had students go to one of those data repository sites, and they were picking out information, and then also she made them determine what type of variables were they. It was really fascinating, and I was pleased to see my students actively participating in this exercise. And then she also talks about existing data types and repositories and analysis of data. It really, I found this exercise really very useful, although we still have to work. It's sort of a work in progress to make the theoretical part less it became very long presentation, so maybe shorter and exercise a bit more active. And I think probably what needs to be done is assigning as a homework, going through certain publications, maybe through PowerPoint, so that students have an idea of what we're talking about in this particular one. So I'm nearing towards the end, and we should have enough time for discussion. Let me get to my other slide, which talks about challenges and problems. This is something that I encountered immediately after I started thinking and working on the course. I took sabbatical a couple of years ago. Actually, my sabbatical was divided in 2 summers. So for the first summer, I really sort of made a point of working on the course, and I read the reading that was required by mathematics department for their proofs course, which was quite advanced. It's just a difficult 40-page article. I sort of learned a bit for myself about mathematical proofs. So for my part, as I was working on my information literacy part, I realized that the environment in which students can go and select their topic kind of shrank, because before it was anything about sciences, and now it was supposed to be math statistics related. So I allowed them to sort of step out a little bit and do a lot of maybe statistical research. For example, I would say statistics in public health, and they will pick out an issue in public health and then work on statistics, or statistics made, for example, in energy use. So that became one of the major topics, which I still think is not satisfactory to me, because I really want them to be, I keep telling them, more statistics, less health, for example. And I think it's an issue. Maybe I should come up with some other model which is closer to the math and statistics per se. And again, statistics sort of have better ground, better platform for conducting research. So that's where my major challenge is. And this is my last slide. I would like to bring these questions. I need advice on any of the stages of the course development, exercises, readings, assignments. I actually asked my students to read science section of the New York Times for every class. It was my requirement for my previous course. And once in a while, you will get an article which is related to mathematics, which is absolutely thrilling, because sometimes you may think, well, why do we need to read science section? How is it related to math? And there were quite a few interesting articles directly related to mathematics in New York Times in the past year or so. So that was absolutely wonderful. But one of the articles was recent, sometime in November or December, about new Museum of Mathematics that opened in New York City, and that was fascinating. I thought it would be interesting to visit. I'm completely interested in the topic of information literacy in the disciplines. How does it make us feel as librarians? Does it give us a lot of leeway when we are addressing the issue? And I would like to see talk to anybody who teaches credit courses, one-shot instructions. And here is another thing that I would like to bring out, the new framework for information literacy. We actually just had a conference here at University at Albany last week, March 10th and Thursday, for ACRL frameworks of information literacy. And Trudy Jacobson, who is my head of department, very honored to have Trudy as a head of department, gave us a keynote on frameworks and how it came out to be, and the ideas, the process. That was fascinating. That was a good conference. We thought it will be local, but we actually had a good turnout, and some folks came from far away. For example, Texas and Illinois and Connecticut. So that was Pennsylvania. That was interesting, and it was interesting to see folks from different types of institutions. There were lots of private colleges, but also state schools, community colleges were very interested in this. So that was something that we enjoyed very much last week, and we just started the conversation about the frameworks. For me, it's still so very strange, and but I know there were conversations about bringing frameworks into information literacy in the sciences, into STEM disciplines. So I would like us maybe start a conversation or share some opinions about it, and start working on introducing frameworks to my students. So I think with this, I will say I'm all set with my presentation part, and if there are any questions, I think we should get to it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Irina. There have been some questions coming in through the chat.
Yeah, I see. I can see it. Right. Let me read.
There was some about the RATs, and if you had any good places to find examples of those, I think was one of the first questions.
Yeah, let me see. I'm looking. Yeah. Yes, red for scratch cards. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Yeah. We're using red for TBL for scratch cards, and you immediately can talk to students. You immediately see how the teams did in class, and if there is a problem question, you can go over it right away. Very, very useful. I find it extremely useful. My course is 2 hours. I see question 1 hour course, 8 weeks, but course goes for 2 hours, once a week. 2 hour course. Sure, I do slides. Latsumi has slides, so you know they can be posted wherever they will have to be posted for that. Let me see the frameworks. There was something about that was the article that is in my presentation. That's the one that I used about Karen Briggs. The frameworks. We started working. What are the red questions like? Gosh. For example, if I teach questions, if I teach the patterns, I will ask them. I will ask which of the following is true, and there will be several statements about the patterns, and obviously it comes from their PowerPoint they were supposed to read for the class, and you could see right away that they did not read the PowerPoint. Or, for example, what types of patterns are there? And I will, you know, it's utility design and plant, but I would also put some other ones. For example, I would say mechanical, software, and utility, or variation of some not correct. And you could see that obviously somebody did not read the homework, did not do the homework when they select absolutely ridiculous types of patterns that do not really exist. So questions like that, they're supposed to be difficult. It's hard for me to make them difficult because we don't have really a lot of theoretical underpinning. Let's be frank, our course, information literacy, is always the practical one. I always consider it as a hands-on course, and I'm always open to advice on maybe more readings that students can do. I use Bill Butke quite a bit, assigning either one or the other chapter from his research strategies book, usually chapter on databases and meta-literacy. I mean, metadata, so students have ideas about it, things like that. Yes, that's to have students, you know, actually get prepared for the class, because they often rewrite in their peer assessment that so-and-so should come to class on time so they could participate in REDs and help the team, or so-and-so should get ready for the class better and participate in REDs and be useful. So that is interesting. Laxmi, what do you mean statistics literacy project? Students listen to interviews of people. That sounds very interesting. No, but there are some really interesting articles. Like there's an article that I read in college teaching, and this is winter 1999, teaching statistical literacy. The source, the journal is college teaching. Article by Patricia Cerrito. Very interesting, sort of eye-opening. It helped me sort of with some ideas when I was working on my class. Oh, I see. Thank you, Annie. Right, right. Thank you. Integrating workplace information literacy into curriculum. Well, and I'm going to look at it. Thank you. Absolutely. So I saw somebody was talking about frameworks, right? I'm going to bring frameworks. We sort of started working on digital badges for frameworks, although I'm not really, I have not worked with badges before. I know Trudy and has been working on them a lot with other librarians from our department. So we sort of divvied up the frameworks and started jotting down some ideas about digital badges that include frameworks. One of the, for example, I've got my framework is research as inquiry, and I started thinking about it, and sort of the idea was that we can come up with some activities that will be shown in different levels of student preparedness as needed, and so that's something I'm looking forward to, and there is something that sounds extremely challenging. I remember how difficult it was to get through ACRL standards in library school when I was taking information literacy instruction class. That was really extremely difficult to wrap it around my mind. And then it became so familiar and ubiquitous that it just, you know, you could wake me up at night and I will recite them all. And then now we think, oh yeah, standards are not standards are old. We need something new. Yeah, I like MIS website. I sometimes have my students look at it just so that they have some ideas about the organization. Yeah, I like this idea about AMS bulletin, and the history of mathematics I think is very interesting, and it actually sort of gives itself as a lends itself as a good topic to research, the history of mathematics. Yeah. My students had a good time researching Carl Gauss. It was we learned a lot about him. One class and another 0. Sounds interesting. Yeah. Wow, sounds great. Did you mention that today is a Pi Day? Oh, of course we did it in the announcement. You wouldn't believe when I was looking for microphone for this to present today. I went everywhere in the library because in a search for it, and I went to our technical services, and you wouldn't believe they actually had a Pi Day. They had 6 pies. It was apple pie, cherry pie, raspberry pie, peach, key lime, and what was the 6th pie? Keep forgetting. So a blueberry pie. So they had 6 pies, and everybody was invited to take a slice. That was a proper Pi Day.
Yeah, it might be a good library event to hold. Have pie in the library on Pi Day.
Yep. Yeah, we used to have we used to celebrate Darwin birthday, and it's February 12th, and we always would have a large, big cake which said "Happy Birthday, Charles Darwin," and whoever will come by, we will give them a piece and talk about science library and what we do. People used to love it. They kept asking us, where is that Darwin birthday again? We kind of stopped. I guess the money was tight, and we kind of didn't go back. And it's a lot of work to organize something like that. But we used to enjoy it. I think we should go back to it soon. Oh, mini apple pie sounds very good. Rather, very good.
Well, I'm just going to ask the crowd again if there are any more questions for Irina or about the whole process. I thought this was amazing. I really think it's impressive that it's on a school-wide basis that you have this information literacy program being implemented. And I like that it's being called information literacy. I don't know if did you have any kickback from people thinking that that wasn't the correct term?
No, we actually did not. But apparently some are doing nothing. So we don't know what they're doing. They do not tell us and do not ask our advice. So that's a bit disturbing. But no, nobody said information literacy. Although we had a faculty panel during our conference on last Thursday, and the faculty panel was quite solid. We had Dean from School of Education, Bob Banger-Drowns. He's really good friend of libraries, very bright. And then Richard Fogarty from History, he actually chaired UN University Academic Council when the whole process was happening, and he talked to a lot of the chairs of departments, and he said that there is a chair of department that should not be named, who said, information literacy, but don't students already know how to Google things? So we still have faculty like that. We don't know what chair. Rick is not telling what department it was, but unfortunately, the opinions like that are there too. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when you get comments like that, it makes you really aware of how important it is to build assessment in, so you can at some point to the class and say, like, look, when we got the students, they couldn't do these things, and afterwards we actually have the assessment proof to show that they learned, and this is what they learned.
Right, and actually we already can see that at the reference desk, when sometimes they come to the reference desk and have no idea what they're looking for, and you obviously see that that must have been one of the components that instructor is incorporating into the curriculum without telling students or explaining, or it is actually pains our hearts, really, but we try to help as much as we can. We had a wave of students looking for science journals in print in science library through this semester, so we understand that there must be assignment going in one of the science departments, but I think in physics they must have incorporated it somehow. Everybody was required to come and find an article in print in our bound periodicals, so that was interesting. So we keep an eye. Yeah, I agree. Mathematics, Scribblow's presentations and scholarly articles. I do agree. Polymath projects. I have to write it down because that sounds interesting. If somebody has questions, my email is, oh, thank you so much. My email is iholden@albany.edu. I invite everybody to write to me with questions and maybe some advice. I would appreciate any feedback. And thank you very much for joining us today and listening to me. It was, it means a lot to me. I loved sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irina. It was very informative and appropriate for the day. So I wish you luck. Are you planning on teaching this again in the fall and spring and continuing on?
Yeah, I'm teaching like in 2 weeks when people come back from spring break. We have a spring break twice a semester, yeah. I just finished my first course, put the grades on Friday into our system, and now getting ready for another one.
Oh,
next
wow.
week. Yeah.
Well, good luck then.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
I just saw a question asking if you were going to write an article about it.
I probably will. I think I will.
Okay, great. I look forward to reading it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. And if you didn't see, the archive does get posted with the the audio, the slides, and the chat archives all get posted. And usually that link is in the announcement that goes out to the STS listserv and stuff like that. So you can look for the link there too. So thank you everybody for attending and have a great week. For those of you on spring break, happy spring. It's our spring break too.
Yeah, our spring break too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.